My brother turned my life into a living hell. He got my wife pregnant, and it turned out that our son wasn't even mine. Later, he came crawling back to me after our parents disowned him, and left me the entire $2 million inheritance. I have a younger brother named Ethan, who has hated me my entire life. If you think it was out of jealousy, you're wrong. I wasn't the favorite child, he was. So he had no reason to be jealous of me. My mom always spoiled my younger brother. He was the golden child in our family. She cooked for him, did his laundry, while I had to do everything myself. She even made me help him with his schoolwork just because he was family. But no one ever did that for me. I accepted it, since I was independent enough to take care of myself. Maybe that was my mistake, letting him get whatever he wanted without asking for anything in return. My brother never helped me when I needed it. He only came to me when he wanted something. I was a quiet, introverted kid who loved studying and minding my own business. He, on the other hand, was just like our dad, loud, rough, and obnoxious. I was also the type who spoke directly and honestly, without sugarcoating anything. Maybe that's why my mom developed such a negative opinion of me. So, from early childhood, he was the family favorite. It didn't really bother me until we got older. The real problem started when he found ways to mock me for being different. He made fun of my height or the fact that I wore glasses. He would sneak into my room, read my private journal, and then run to our mom to tell her what I had written. I yelled at him and complained to our parents about him crossing my boundaries, but they just laughed, saying it wasn't a big deal. Eventually, his behavior got worse. He nearly broke my glasses once, and another time he slipped disgusting things into my food. One morning, he even put little pebbles in my oatmeal. Luckily, I spotted them before they could break my teeth. I told my mom, but she just brushed it off, saying, "That's how brothers bond." Whenever we argued, Ethan went straight for my insecurities. We went to the same school, and he knew I was being bullied by some classmates. Instead of helping, he joined them, calling me ugly, a loser, or a hairy monkey. He even encouraged them to hurt me physically, saying I was just a pathetic loser. One time we fought over something small, I don't even remember what, and he told me he wished I would die. Normally I ignored his insults, but that one really hurt, because at the time I was struggling with mental health issues. I'm better now, but it was devastating to hear my own brother say he wanted me dead. Dad was often at work, and Mom didn't seem to care. Once, she even yelled at me, saying it was my fault for playing with him and annoying him. Things got worse in high school. Once, he actually tried to set my hair on fire. The most shocking part? Mom took his side, saying he was just playing. Playing? Seriously? Thankfully, Dad eventually stepped in, told them both they had serious issues, and even threatened to call the police on Ethan. That was a wake-up call for him. No one had ever punished him before. Dad then came into my room and talked to me. I never thought he'd take my side, since he always told Ethan while he was growing up how much they were alike, which was true. He told me he had hoped for years that Ethan was just being immature, but he was starting to see that Ethan was turning into a real bully. Hearing that from Dad felt like such a relief. I almost cried. I told him everything Ethan had done over the years, including the bullying at school. He was shocked I had gone through so much alone. The next day, Dad went to the school to talk to the principal, warning my bullies about serious consequences if they kept it up. That evening, he signed me up for MMA classes at the local gym, saying I needed to get stronger and learn to stand up to bullies. For a nerd like me, learning to fight probably looked ridiculous. But like everything I did in life, I threw myself into it with full focus, training every day and attending every class. Honestly, it completely changed my life and my body. One day, Ethan went back to his old ways. He stole my allowance money, which I had been saving for months. I caught him just as he was about to leave with his friends. I firmly told him to give it back, because he knew stealing was wrong. He smirked and said the only thing I could do was go cry to Dad. I don't know what came over me, but I punched him right in the face. He was so stunned, he fell to the ground without saying a word. I pulled him up, took my money out of his pocket, then shoved him back down. He started bawling like a little kid. It was almost funny to see a teenage boy crying like that. But then Mom came running out of the house after hearing her baby cry. When she found out I had hit him, she was shocked at first, then started scolding me. She said that as the older brother, I should be teaching him good things. Ethan seemed to enjoy watching me get chewed out. Mom even complained to Dad that I needed to be controlled. Dad, however, asked me to explain myself. I told him Ethan had stolen the money I had earned and saved, and Ethan tried to justify it by saying he needed it for a date, and that as his brother, I should help him. Dad told Ethan he was lucky all I did was hit him, because someone else might have called the cops. He told him he had no right to take other people's things without permission. Ethan didn't like that and started throwing a tantrum, probably hoping Mom would take his side. But Dad stood firm. When Ethan realized I wasn't going to be punished, he yelled about how much he hated me, ran to his room, and slammed the door. After that, he kept his distance from me. He finally understood he couldn't mess with me physically anymore, and that even Dad wasn't on his side. For the first time in a long while, I felt like we were on equal ground. He still tried to hurt me with words when no one was around, but over the years, his anger only seemed to grow. If I asked him something, he'd just ignore me and walk out, muttering, "Nerd," or "loser," under his breath. If he needed to tell me something, he would only do it through Mom, who would then relay the message. I once asked her why Ethan couldn't just talk to me directly, but she told me to be more understanding. I didn't know if it was just a phase I needed to wait out, or if he genuinely hated me. Eventually, I just wanted to move out to get away from all that toxicity. I even asked Mom multiple times to arrange a sit-down so we could talk things out, but she always refused, saying she didn't want to get involved. In the end, I left for the university I had always dreamed of attending. I was a straight-A student and had even earned a scholarship. Dad threw me a party, and Mom seemed proud of me too, but Ethan stayed cold and distant, barely acknowledging my accomplishments. The day I moved out was a mix of excitement for the future and relief at escaping the toxic environment at home. My first months at university were pure freedom. I made a lot of friends, enjoyed my classes, and began building a life without the constant tension. The fear of Ethan's verbal attacks was gone, and I felt a peace I had never known before. In my second year, I started dating my future wife, Melissa. A friend introduced us at a fraternity party, and we hit it off immediately. Coming from a religious family, having kids before marriage was absolutely out of the question. So, when we found out Melissa was pregnant during my senior year, we decided to get married right after graduation. Our wedding was small but beautiful. The ceremony was perfect, and our families seemed genuinely happy for us. Everyone had a great time. At that point, I truly believed Melissa was the love of my life. I had always been the kind of man who wanted monogamy, one woman for life. Even though, over the years, other women had shown interest in me, I never sought anything outside my marriage. I was genuinely content with my wife and never wanted to hurt her. But over the course of our marriage, I caught her cheating on me twice. One of those affairs was with a married co-worker. It was an on-again, off-again relationship that lasted several years. The other was with an ex-boyfriend from high school, when she went to visit her family in another state. I know some people would call me a fool, and looking back, I can't deny it. After short periods of separation in both cases, I chose to forgive her. I didn't want to raise a child in a broken home, and I truly believed we could get past it. We were young when the thing with her coworker happened, so I chalked it up to immature mistakes and poor judgment. For a while, everything seemed fine. I never fully trusted her again, but I tried to push the doubts aside, because I knew that if I chose forgiveness, I had to actually live it, move forward and start fresh. For years had passed since her second affair, and I felt like maybe I'd made the right choice by giving her another chance. Melissa seemed to have changed, and we were genuinely happy again, planning our future together. But 3 months ago, my reality was shattered by something far worse than either of those betrayals. She confessed that she had been sleeping with another man for a long time, and hinted that our son might not even be mine. When she said those words, it felt like the ground was pulled out from under me. Shock, betrayal, and confusion hit me all at once. I struggled to process what she was saying. In a daze, I asked her why she had kept something so huge from me, and how she could do something so destructive to our family. Her reaction was cold, almost detached, as if she didn't really care about the pain she was causing me. Her answers were vague, leaving me with more questions than answers. I kept pressing her, telling her I deserved to know who our son's biological father was. I had been there since day one. I had raised him as my own. Eventually, she admitted it was Ethan. My eyes went wide. I asked her to explain exactly what she meant. That's when Melissa told me that she and Ethan became close after I introduced her to my family. She said it started when she stayed at my parents' house from Thanksgiving through New Year's. I remember that visit. Ethan, who was usually cold toward me, was surprisingly polite and charming with her. I was glad, because I didn't want Melissa to feel unwelcome. She spent a lot of time with my mom, wanting to be accepted by my family. At some point, she noticed how distant Ethan and I were, and she asked me about it. I finally opened up and told her that I doubted we'd ever have a real relationship. Melissa seemed to take it upon herself to help us bond. She would include Ethan in our plans, even choosing movies he wanted to watch instead of me. Honestly, at the time, I thought we were making progress, since we were at least talking more than before. I remember Melissa and Ethan playing video games together sometimes, but I never thought much of it. According to her, one night Ethan opened up to her about his struggles and a recent breakup. He was vulnerable, and they started to form a connection. She admitted that he flirted with her when I wasn't around, and apparently, things eventually went too far. The moment she described it, an image of them together flashed in my mind, and I almost threw up. She told me she felt guilty afterward and avoided him for a while. That part was true. I remembered her suddenly telling me she wanted to go home after Christmas, even though I thought she'd be staying with me through New Year's. She insisted she needed to leave after the holidays. When we reunited at college, she acted completely normal, so I didn't suspect a thing. 2 weeks later, we found out she was pregnant. Now, she told me she had no idea who the father was, me or Ethan, and had no way of finding out for sure. But since I had already taken responsibility, and since I was clearly the more dependable brother, she decided to stay with me. That was the real reason we got married. Hearing this made my entire world collapse. The boy I loved, the boy I had spent countless hours raising, might not even be mine. I asked her if she was still seeing Ethan. Slowly she nodded. She admitted they had stayed in touch all these years because of the undeniable chemistry between them. She confessed that when she told me she was working late, she was often meeting Ethan at hotels. Half of her business trips were actually romantic getaways with him. I asked her why she even married me if she really wanted my brother. She said she didn't want to be the one to break up a family, and, seeing what a good father I was, she stayed with me all these years. She claimed she had made a mistake and didn't know how to stop. I told Melissa I was glad she told me the truth, and that I'd be packing my things and leaving. She started crying, begging for forgiveness, saying I should be yelling and angry, not calm and methodical. I ignored her, went to the closet, and started filling my suitcase. She kept insisting that if I really loved her, I would fight for her, that mistakes happen in every marriage. When she realized I wasn't budging, she switched tactics. She started talking about how a divorce would affect our son, saying kids shouldn't be raised in broken homes. I reminded her that I might not even be his father. That made her cry harder. She began shouting, accusing me of being cruel and saying I couldn't just walk away after being in his life from the beginning. I think she truly believed there was nothing she could do that would make me leave. And honestly, that might be partly my fault. I had let so much slide in the past. Yes, I still had some feelings for her, but only because I believed we had a son together and because we had been together since college. But this crossed every line. She kept saying it wasn't too late, that we could fix things, but I didn't believe it. Even if I forgave her, I could never forget that she had slept with my own brother. I've always believed that people can make mistakes and be forgiven. Nobody's perfect. But this was different. This was unforgivable. I left her crying in the doorway and drove to a hotel. The next day, I went to my parents' house and told them everything about the affair, about how they had been seeing each other for years behind my back. Their shock was obvious. My mom, as expected, tried to defend Ethan at first, insisting it couldn't be true, that her boy would never do something like that to his brother. Determined to expose the truth, I told my parents to stay quiet and let me call Ethan right there in front of him. I asked them not to make a sound, hoping he'd think it was just a private conversation and let his guard down. When he answered, I went straight to the point, confronting him about sleeping with my wife. At first, he denied it completely. But when I told him Melissa had already confessed, he turned on her, calling her immoral. He said it wasn't his fault if women wanted him, and that he was simply the more attractive brother. I told him firmly that I was going to expose him to everyone. When Ethan started laughing and saying no one would believe me because he was the golden child, I actually smirked at his arrogance. I thanked him for confirming the truth, because our parents had heard every word. Ethan went silent. Then, stammering, he began scrambling to explain himself and salvage his reputation. My mom, still in shock, demanded an explanation from him. He mumbled pathetic excuses, blaming everyone but himself and desperately trying to pin it all on Melissa. For the first time, I saw my mother, who had always defended her favorite son, looking at him with a mix of disappointment and anger. In that tense moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: satisfaction. After a lifetime of enduring his abuse, the truth was out. The roles were reversed. Ethan was exposed, and his actions were laid bare for everyone to see. When his words began to falter, my father, usually reserved in his emotions, couldn't hide his disappointment any longer. He asked me to hand him the phone, and then tore into Ethan. "Ethan," he began, his voice heavy with condemnation. "What you've done isn't just a betrayal of your brother. It's a betrayal of this entire family. You slept with your brother's wife and continued even after they were married. Your actions have consequences, and you've destroyed the trust we had in you beyond repair. I raised both of you to understand that family, loyalty, and integrity are the most important values. Today, you've shattered everything I tried to teach you." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "Your indifference to your brother's feelings, your lack of respect for his marriage, it's unacceptable. You didn't just hurt him, you damaged our relationship with you. I feel like your mother, and I are partly to blame for the man you become. And we will not let you go unpunished. Starting today, I'm cutting off the college fund I set aside for you. You'll have to handle your own tuition. I'm also done supporting your lifestyle. You think being a man means having affairs with married women? Let's see how you manage when you can't rely on anyone financially." I stayed calm, though part of me wanted to scream at Ethan, because watching my father take control like this was the most satisfying form of justice I could have asked for. Ethan kept protesting and trying to defend himself, but my dad ended the call sharply, shutting down his pathetic attempts. My mom came over and hugged me. It had been years since we'd had a moment like that, but in that embrace, there was unspoken support and understanding. She apologized for never believing me all those years. 14-year-old me could never have imagined this, my mom standing beside me instead of him. After that, my dad helped me hire a good lawyer for the divorce. Melissa and her attorney tried to play dirty, demanding alimony because I made more money than her. But her cheating worked in my favor. We also did a paternity test. It confirmed what I dreaded most: Ethan was indeed the father of the child. I can't put into words how crushing that news was. It hurt even more than her confession. Melissa begged me to keep visiting Henry, saying he shouldn't suffer for her mistakes. But I couldn't. I couldn't look at him without seeing Ethan, and I hated it. Once the divorce was finalized, I moved into my own bachelor apartment. It was strange living alone. I had married young and had never really been on my own before. But I've always been independent, and soon I actually started to love it. 2 weeks ago, my dad called to tell me he was changing his will. He didn't want Ethan inheriting anything. Nearly $2 million would go to me, and Ethan would get a single dollar. When Ethan found out, he called me begging for help. He said he was broke, struggling with child support, and wanted us to start fresh. I laughed and told him he should have thought about that before sleeping with my wife. Then I told him we were done, that he should never call me again, because I wasn't his brother anymore. So now I'm left wondering, should I talk to our parents about him? And would I be the *** hole if I didn't? Update 1. A lot of people have asked why I don't see my son, Henry, anymore, and some even called me cruel. I hate to say it, but I don't want to raise another man's child. This isn't a stepchild situation. I was made to believe he was mine, and then I found out he was actually my brother's son. Of course it hurt. I cried for days. But the reason I cut contact with Henry is that I don't want Melissa anywhere near my life. If I kept seeing him, she'd find a way to sneak back in, and I can't let that happen. Call me selfish, but I just can't see him right now. Update 2. Most of you guessed correctly, my mom was the one who told Ethan about the will. He only called me out of desperation. I confronted her about it in front of my dad, and she broke down crying. She said I'd punished Ethan enough, and that he'd learned his lesson. My dad told her flat out that if she thought Ethan's actions were forgivable, he couldn't stay married to her, because he would never forgive him for that betrayal. That threat shut her up fast. He made it clear that if she spoke to Ethan again, and we found out, she'd have to pack her things and leave. Like I said, my father is a stubborn man. Hopefully my mom learned her lesson. Update 3 5 months later. Things with my parents have been much better. My dad and I now play golf every weekend, and our relationship feels more like friendship than father and son. My mom still misses Ethan, but she keeps her distance. The last I heard from my cousin, Ethan had been asking everyone for money and eventually dropped out of college when he couldn't pay tuition. He and Melissa now live together. Ethan works part-time as a mechanic, and apparently they're raising Henry together, which I guess is for the best. When I talk to my parents, Ethan's name never comes up, and I like it that way. As for me, I'm doing fine. I got promoted at work 2 months ago, so my salary went up significantly. I'm not dating anyone yet. I feel like I still need time. I also started seeing a therapist. We'll see where that goes.